Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The night was thick with silence, the kind that makes every heartbeat sound louder, every breath more noticeable. The dim glow of the bedside lamp painted the room in warm gold, shadows stretching across the walls like secrets waiting to be told. I turned over, expecting the steady rhythm of my husband's breathing to lull me back to sleep. Instead, my ears caught something else, his presence heavy beside me, his body close enough that I could feel the heat radiating between us, though neither of us moved. He was in his 40s, broad-shouldered, his quiet strength always filling the room before he even spoke. Tonight, his silence carried weight, a quiet intensity that brushed against my skin like an unspoken touch. I knew he was awake. I could feel it in the way his chest rose just a fraction slower, in the subtle shift of the mattress when his shoulder brushed mine. The contact was nothing, barely a graze, but it lingered, electric, making me swallow hard against the rush of warmth in my throat. I met his eyes in the low light, and for a moment too long, neither of us looked away. There was a charge there, the kind that makes your stomach twist and your lungs forget what to do. His gaze dipped, almost imperceptibly, to my lips before flicking back up. That single glance was enough to unravel the air between us, pulling it tighter, closer. My lips parted with the smallest breath, and I wondered if he could hear the quickening of my pulse as clearly as I did. The room grew smaller with each passing second, the space between us collapsing without either of us moving. My shoulder leaned just slightly toward him, an instinct, a surrender. The faintest brush of warmth spread across my skin where our bodies nearly touched, and I caught the sound of his breath, deeper, slower, as if he too was fighting against gravity's pull. I closed my eyes for just a heartbeat, feeling the moment stretch, sharp and sweet. There was danger in it, curiosity that burned, temptation that whispered louder than reason. My fingers curled against the sheet, gripping it as though it could hold me back. And then, it stopped. The line was there, invisible yet undeniable, hovering between us. One more breath, one more inch, and everything would change. But for now, we lingered at the edge, wanting, waiting, not yet crossing. The air between us felt fragile, like glass that could shatter with a single touch. My hands shifted on the sheets, brushing against his by accident, or maybe not entirely. The back of his knuckles grazed mine, and though neither of us moved away, the silence turned heavier, thick with the awareness of what we weren't supposed to do. His skin was warm, the kind of warmth that seeps in and lingers long after, and the subtle friction made my breath catch in my chest. I laughed softly, a nervous, breathy sound that escaped before I could stop it. His lips curved in the dim light, just the hint of a smile, but his eyes never left mine. They flicked, briefly, to my mouth again. That tiny movement was louder than words, and it made my stomach twist. Did he realize how much power he held in that single glance? Or was he testing me, waiting to see if I would lean in closer, surrender to the pull neither of us could deny? His hands shifted just slightly, his fingers brushing mine again, this time lingering. It was nothing more than the barest contact, but the deliberate slowness made it feel like a secret confession. My throat tightened. If anyone else had walked in right then, they wouldn't have seen anything. But we knew. We both knew. And then came the flicker of something sharper, darker, jealousy. The thought slid uninvited into my mind, of the way his eyes sometimes lingered on other women, the casual charm he wore so effortlessly in a crowd. A sharpness curled low in my chest, but instead of pulling me back, it drove me closer. The idea of anyone else feeling this heat, this dangerous intimacy, was unbearable. I wanted it to belong only to me. The sheets rustled as his shoulder pressed against mine more firmly, his breath warm against my cheek. The sound of it, slow, steady, pulling me into his rhythm, made my pulse quicken. My eyes dropped to his lips, betraying me. A moment passed where it felt inevitable, unstoppable, like gravity itself was tilting us toward each other. And then, something shifted. The mattress dipped unexpectedly as he moved closer, not calculated this time but instinctual. Our bodies tilted, the gap between us collapsing until I could feel the heat radiating off him, undeniable, impossible to ignore. We were caught in it now, tangled in the kind of moment that couldn't be undone. One more second, one more breath, and the line would be crossed, whether we meant it or not. It was unbearable, the way every second stretched, every brush of skin setting off sparks we pretended not to feel. I shifted, only slightly, but enough that the back of my hand slipped fully against his. His fingers didn't pull away. Instead, they flexed, grazing mine with the barest movement, deliberate in its restraint. My breath caught, and the silence between us cracked open, humming with the danger of what could happen if we let go. He leaned just a fraction closer, the air moving differently, warmer, as if the space between us wasn't air at all but something alive, pulling us together. His shoulder pressed more firmly against mine, and his voice, low, hushed, broke the stillness. "You can't sleep either?" The question was simple, but the way his words brushed the edge of my ear made it sound like something far more intimate. My lips parted before I could stop them, a breath escaping, betraying me. I turned my head, and suddenly his face was only inches away, his gaze sharp and unrelenting. For a moment, I thought he might close the distance, but instead, he lingered, holding me hostage in that suspended space. The corners of his mouth twitched, like he knew exactly what he was doing. It was a game now, each of us daring the other to move first, to be the one to break the boundary. My fingers tightened against the sheets, but then I let them slip closer, brushing against his hand again. This time, he didn't hesitate. His fingertips grazed mine in a slow, teasing line, like a promise and a warning all at once. My breath hitched audibly, and he heard it. I saw the satisfaction flicker in his eyes, the faint smirk that told me he'd won that round. The tension coiled tighter, every second its own battle. I leaned back just slightly, trying to reclaim space, but he mirrored the movement, not allowing the distance. Instead, he shifted again, his lips close enough that his breath warmed my cheek. "Careful," he whispered, almost playful, almost dangerous. The word wasn't a warning, it was an invitation. My pulse thundered in my ears, every nerve alive with the pull between us. I knew if I gave in, if I let the gravity win, everything would change. And yet, when his hand finally slid over mine, covering it completely, heat flaring through my skin, I didn't move away. The line was gone. And then, he moved, bold, certain, closing the space in a way that left no room to turn back. The room had grown impossibly small, as though the air itself had thickened, trapping us inside the pull neither of us wanted to name. His hand, heavy and sure, covered mine completely, his thumb brushing in slow, deliberate circles that made my skin tingle. I could feel every detail, the rough edge of his calloused palm against my softer skin, the steady heat radiating through the sheets, the way his grip lingered like he wasn't ready to let me go. Our breathing changed, shifting into sync, shallow at first, then slower, deeper, like we were caught in the same rhythm. His chest rose, mine followed, and in that shared pattern, I felt a dangerous intimacy, like our bodies were already confessing what our mouths refused to say. I tilted toward him, unthinking, only to stop short when his lips hovered a fraction from mine. My pulse drummed wildly, louder than the silence between us, and I swore he could hear it. He smiled then, slow, knowing, teasing. "You're trembling," he whispered, the words slipping across my skin like a touch. My lips parted, my breath uneven, but no reply came. I couldn't trust my voice. Instead, I let my eyes drop to his mouth, my restraint unraveling with each second I held back. The heat of his breath brushed against me, so close it made my throat dry, so close it hurt not to close the space. His fingers slid higher, from my hand to my wrist, tracing the faint pulse there, pressing just enough to let me know he felt it racing. "You're scared," he murmured, though there was no cruelty in it, only temptation, only challenge. My lashes fluttered, and I forced myself to hold his gaze. "And you're not?" I whispered back, my voice barely audible but carrying all the weight of the risk between us. He leaned in further, until his lips grazed my cheek. Not a kiss, just the ghost of one, light enough to make me shiver. His breath was hot against my ear when he chuckled softly, almost darkly. "You have no idea," he said, his words sinking into me like a promise. The moment stretched, the line blurred. Our faces tilted closer, lips hovering, breaths tangling, everything pulling us forward. Just one more second, and the restraint would shatter. And then, the sound. A sudden creak of the floorboards outside the door. We froze, locked in the moment, caught between desire and discovery, teetering on the edge of the fall. The creak outside the door faded into silence, leaving us suspended, our breaths still tangled in the air. Neither of us moved for a long beat, afraid that shifting even an inch would break the fragile illusion we were hiding in. When the quiet returned fully, I let out a shaky laugh, soft, nervous, dangerous. He caught it, his lips curving in that slow, devastating smirk that always unsettled me. But the tension didn't dissolve. If anything, it grew heavier, as though the interruption had only wounded us tighter. We slipped out of bed under the excuse of needing a drink, padding into the kitchen where the light was softer still, spilling from the window like silver paint. He reached into the cabinet for 2 glasses, his arm brushing against mine as he moved. It should have been nothing. It wasn't. The bottle uncorked with a soft pop, the scent rich, earthy. He poured, sliding 1 glass toward me. His fingers grazed mine on purpose this time, slow and deliberate, a touch too long to be innocent. I looked up sharply, only to meet his gaze already fixed on me, steady, challenging. I took the glass, bringing it to my lips. His eyes followed the motion, burning hotter than the drink sliding down my throat. "Careful," I said, echoing his earlier tease, though my voice shook in places I couldn't control. He chuckled low, leaning in close as if to hear me better. His breath fanned over my cheek, carrying the scent of wine and warmth. It might have ended there, except I shifted too quickly, bumping against him. The glass tipped in my hand, a crimson splash across the counter, spilling toward us both. He caught my wrist, pulling me back sharply to avoid the mess. In that sudden tug, I stumbled against him, my body pressed flush against his. The contact was electric, all heat and pressure, his arm braced firmly around my waist. My palm landed against his chest, the steady thrum of his heartbeat pounding against my fingertips. His breath hitched, mine matched it, and in the half-second of stillness, the world tilted into something far too intimate to ignore. Then came the twist, the flicker of jealousy I hadn't expected. His gaze dropped to my lips again, but this time, I noticed the edge in it, sharp and possessive, like he resented the idea of anyone else standing this close to me. I tested it, just slightly, letting my hand linger on his chest longer than necessary, my nails dragging faintly against the fabric. His jaw tightened, his smirk fading into something darker, hungrier. "Enjoying yourself," he murmured, voice low, dangerous in its restraint. I didn't answer. Instead, I tilted my chin higher, meeting his stare with a defiance that dared him to act. The air between us sizzled, tension wounds so tight it felt inevitable. His hand at my waist shifted, sliding lower, pulling me in closer still. My glass slipped from my grip, clinking onto the counter as though marking the moment we'd gone too far. And just as his lips hovered close enough that I could feel the warmth of his breath against mine, the world held its breath too. The moment was there, inevitable, undeniable. And then, cut. The room was still, the spilled wine forgotten, the glass teetering on the counter. All that mattered was the heat of his hand at my waist, anchoring me as though I might slip away if he let go. My chest pressed lightly against his, every rise and fall of breath sinking in an unsteady rhythm that betrayed us both. His forehead dipped until it rested against mine, and the world seemed to tilt with the weight of it. The touch was so small, so innocent on the surface, yet it felt more intimate than anything else could have been. My eyes closed instinctively, and I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. His exhale came with mine, warm, uneven, almost trembling. We stayed like that, suspended in a fragile, dangerous calm, until his voice slipped through the silence. "You have no idea how close I am to losing control." The words were ragged, torn from him as though he hadn't meant to speak them. I shivered, my fingers tightening against his chest, my nails grazing the fabric in a barely there drag. I should have stepped back. Instead, I whispered back, my lips brushing the space just near his ear, "Then don't." The shift was immediate, his hands sliding more firmly against my waist, drawing me closer, our foreheads pressed tighter. His breath came in shorter bursts, and mine followed, our silence charged with every unspoken confession. He didn't kiss me, not yet, but the absence of it, the restraint at the edge of breaking, was almost unbearable. And then, just when it felt inevitable, when surrender seemed the only option left, the twist came. He pulled back slightly, eyes blazing, and said, "You talk in your sleep, did you know that?" My heart lurched. His tone wasn't playful, there was something underneath it, something heavy, something I hadn't expected. The air thickened with a new kind of tension, one laced with both intimacy and fear. What did I say?" I managed, my voice barely a whisper. He smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes this time. His thumb traced slow circles against my hip, grounding me, yet teasing with the answer I wasn't sure I wanted. "Enough," he murmured, leaning close enough that his lips brushed the shell of my ear. "Enough to make me wonder if you're mine, or if I'm just fooling myself." The confession cracked the air between us wide open. Our closeness had never felt so dangerous, so necessary, so impossible to pull away from. And then, silence. For a long moment, his words hung between us, heavier than the silence itself. "Enough to make me wonder." The echo of it made my chest tighten, my breath uneven. I searched his face, looking for anger, jealousy, something sharp enough to cut through the closeness. But instead, I found something else, something raw, uncertain, vulnerable. Without thinking, I reached for his hand where it still rested at my waist, threading my fingers through his. He didn't resist. His grip tightened almost immediately, grounding us both. The danger was still there, thick in the air, but now it was laced with something softer, something that felt dangerously close to trust. "I don't remember what I said," I admitted quietly, my forehead brushing against his again. "But I know what I feel now." The words slipped out before I could stop them, and for a second, I thought I'd gone too far. His lips curved slowly, not quite a smile, but close, a fragile, knowing expression that made my chest ache. He didn't push further. He didn't ask. Instead, he pulled me into him fully, arms wrapping around me in a lingering embrace that said more than either of us could. My cheek pressed to his chest, and I listened to the steady drum of his heartbeat, fast but certain. My own breath softened, sinking with his, until the tension dulled into something quieter, sweeter, but still alive. When I finally pulled back, his eyes caught mine and held them, unblinking. No kiss, no final crossing of the line. Just that look, that smirk with secrets hidden in it, that silent promise that this wasn't over. My lips parted, but I didn't speak. I didn't need to. We stood in the quiet kitchen, the spilled wine drying on the counter, shadows stretching long across the floor. The same way the night had begun, charged, tense, filled with unspoken words, but now layered with something deeper, something unforgettable. The story wasn't finished. Not really. And maybe that was the point.